In Module 9, we will continue to talk about functions. We will finish Chapter 6. Last week, we started talking about functions. So you know the function including 4 parts. We have the return type, function name, parameter list, and the function body. Last week, we only showed you the function without any value to return. So that's the data. The return type will be void. But here, actually, function can return by any data value you specify. So sometimes your function can return a double value, can return an int value, can be a character, can be a string. So that's what we'll see the example from the return value through the function. Then this week, we will continue to talk about returning the Boolean value and how to using the function in the manual-driven program. So that is in our Monday lecture. So Wednesday, we will continue to talk about the default argument in function and the overloading function. And also we will more detail to see different variable we will have. So we will have a local variable, global variable. Then we also have static variable. So the first thing that start our first lecture this week, we will see the return value through the function. So return type will be specified the value we return from the function. So if you remember, we told you a function, you contain 4 different parts. The first one actually show what kind of return type you will return. So that's this return type actually is the function return a value back to the statement they calling the function. For example, you use the power function many times, right? Remember before you're using the power function for the pi r squared to get the area. So here, for example, I just want the power 2 to the 10th power. So the base is 2. The exponent is 10. So actually this one, we are looking for 2 to the 10th power. So then, right, so when you try to call the function, you pass in your base and exponent. But the most important thing is, after we call the function, we want then return the value is 2 to the 10th power. So that's why you see here, you will have the return value is 2 to the 10th power after you call the function to give you the return value. So sometimes you may just see out display the 2 to the 10th power, or we want to save that in some variable. So that's why we assign the result after we call the function 2 to the 10th power to the variable x. So that's what we call the return value for a function. So you're calling the function, passing the argument you have, then the value returned back, you can either just display the value, or a lot of time we want them to have this value to save in somewhere. So of course, we want to save in somewhere, we need to have a variable for that. So when you define a variable, you will define this variable, actually the data type will be double as well. So why is double? Because we want to match the data type returned from the function. So that's the return value we will assign to the x. So that's why you can see after you call the function, you want to assign the value to a variable, they will be the same data type. So we call the function we assign to the x. The x is double data type, will be the same data type as the return value of the power function you just invoke. So that's example about the power function. So remember the power function, we pass in 2 double value as the argument. We call the function and the return value will be also double. So now we see another example to see what we will implement our value return function. So when we want to implement a value return function, of course, you will specify the return type in the function. So then here, the value you want to return back from the function, we will using the return keyword. So this return keyword actually followed by the value you want to return. The return statement can be used to return a value from the function to the point of code. So that's mean here, actually, when we return, the value we will return, they will return back to where we call the function. For example, like here, we call the power function. So then the value 2 to the 10th power, they will return to this point. But here is how we will call the function. But here, the example we want to see is how we will implement a return value function. So this example, we're using the function we call sum. This sum function will get two parameters. So we're using the two int parameter num1 and num2 to receive two integer value. Then this function will return back the num1 plus num2. The total of num1 and num2, that's the value we will return. So since this one is an int data type, you want to add two integers together. So of course, the integer total is the int as well. So that's why you can see here is we call, every time we implement a function, we have 4 parts, right? So this one is our return type. We return int data type. So sum is our function name. So in the parentheses, we will have the parameter list one by one. So we have the first one is int, the parameter variable called num1. So then the second one is int as well, the parameter variable called num2. So we want to return the total of the num1 plus num2. So that's why we declare a variable. So here actually the variable should be int. Okay, because one thing is we want to return the result is calculate from num1 and num2. So that's why here we declare an integer data type is the result. So this result is the num1 plus num2, then assign the value to the result. So then at the end, you see I will return the result value from my function. So then later when we call this function, I will return the value for the result. So that's why I specify the data type is int. To further see this example, you will see here. You see here the return type is int. So sum is the function name. So then we have two parameter list. So then here at the end, we're using the return to return the value we want to return back from the function. So when we return a value, because here they tell us that's the integer. So when we return results, actually we only return the value. So only the value will be returned. Because remember, after we return back from the function, So then here result actually is the local variable we define in the function. After we function finish, this result memory location is gone. So that's why we only remember the value we will return from the function. So this one actually will just show you the example how we will implement that. So most of the time we will have the value define what we want to return. We have the variable called result. So this result is local. So this result actually is a local variable in the function. So this local variable actually after the function finish, they will be gone. The same thing as num1 and num2. So then here I have result equal to num1 plus num2. Then I return result. So that's a formal way to implement the function. So sometimes we will return the variable value. But here actually, like we say, we can simplify our implementation. Since I only want to return num1 plus num2. So your return can return a variable, they return the value. Or your return can just have an expression. So you can see here the same function, but different implementation. So you can still have your int is return type. Sum is your function name. So we have two parameters. So then these two parameters, actually when I want to return, I just simply do num1 plus num2. So then they just return the value. So your return keyword actually can return a variable, or they will return the expression. Of course, it's the result of the expression. So very good here, just the function implementation. So that's why I want you to download your example 7. We really see this example for the full main function implementation. So then the same thing you see here, I have the line 9. Remember for this class, I always want you to have a prototype first. Then you have your main function. Then you have your function implementation. So the same thing, we just have our function prototype is earlier we show you the sum function. You passing two integer value. So then they will return you an integer value. So here we just in the main function, we will ask the user to enter two integer. So these two integer we will save in value 1 and value 2. So using these two value user enter, so then I pass into my function. So you can see here our function sum implementation, we will just have that two parameter list. But you can see here in the function prototype, we only have the parameter list, the data type. But in your function implementation, we need to have our variable name. So that's why this variable name num1, num2, they will receive to store the value when we call the function. So then you can see here in line 19, I invoke the sum function, right? So I pass in value 1 and value 2. So the value 1 will be assigned to num1. Value 2 will be assigned to num2. So then my function I just work is return num1 plus num2. So after I invoke this function, I pass in value 1, value 2 to num1 and num2. So I work on this function, I process step by step. So then I will return num1, num2, add together the value return. So when they return, actually they return to where? They return to this point we assign, right? See, you call the function here. You see, you call the function here. That's why later is the value returned back to the function here. So then we will have this value assigned to total. So then at the end we can display the sum of the value 1 and value 2 is what. Okay, so remember the most important thing is I not just want you to read at this code. So one thing is I want you to run on your IDE. So please have your IDE ready and run example 7. You can pause the video when you are ready, then restart. I will show you that this example run on IDE. So we open the Cloud9, you see that's chapter 6, example 7. So we just import this file. So right, see here is our prototype. So that's our main function. Then here is our function implementation. So then if we try to run this program, so you will see here, right? So they ask us, please enter two integers separate with a space. So then we do 56 and 70 or 90. So then you see you enter. So then they will have your result because we display the sum of 56 and 90 is 146. Because here we ask the user in line 15 to 16 to get the user input. So after I save the 56 into value 1 and the 90 into the value 2. So then we pass in the value 1 and value 2 and call the function. So this 56 and 90 will be copied to the num1, num2 by value. So num1 will be 56, num2 will be 90. So we add together, they only return the 146 back to where we call the function. So that's why the total being assigned is 146. So then here we will display the result. So that's the function implementation. And make sure you run. And also remember earlier, you see here, we just returned the expression, right? But earlier we show you, you maybe can declare a result variable. Then you can try to modify that to see if you still have the same result.